Captain Miranda Randy Wells slouched in her chair at the diplomatic station orbiting Earth, drumming her fingers against the polished conference table. The station's reinforced windows offered a spectacular view of her home planet, but after 3 years as humanity's first face for new alien encounters, the novelty had worn thinner than the coffee they served in the mess hall. "Approaching vessel has initiated docking procedures, Captain," announced Lieutenant Parker through the comms. "The Drosian delegation will be boarding in approximately 7 minutes." "Fantastic," Randy muttered, straightening her uniform jacket. "Another day, another species that probably thinks we're either savages or snacks." Commander Toshi Nakamura, her second-in-command and official buzzkill, shot her a disapproving glance. "Captain, may I remind you that the Drosians are the dominant species in the Cygnus sector. Their technological capabilities far exceed our own, and establishing peaceful relations is critical to humanity's continued existence as a spacefaring species," Randy finished with practiced precision. "I know the speech, Toshi. I wrote half of it for Admiral Coleman's briefing. Then perhaps you could attempt to look less like you're waiting for a root canal," Toshi suggested with just enough military deference to make it not quite insubordination. Randy forced her face into what she hoped was an expression of diplomatic enthusiasm. "Better?" "Marginally." The station's alert system chimed, signaling the successful docking of the Drosian vessel. Randy stood, smoothing her uniform and mentally reviewing the 17 pages of diplomatic protocols the xenocultural team had compiled. No direct eye contact, no showing of teeth, no physical contact whatsoever. "Address the tall one first, then the one with the most decorative headgear." "Here we go," she murmured, as the airlock doors slid open with a theatrical hiss. The Drosian delegation was unexpected. 3 humanoid figures glided into the room inside what appeared to be transparent environmental suits. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall with 4 long, elegantly jointed arms. Their skin, visible through the suits, shimmered with an iridescent green hue that reminded Randy of the northern lights. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," spoke the tallest Drosian, its voice a melodic series of clicks and whirs, translated through the station's language matrix. "I am Primary Envoy Krelks of the Drosian Collective." Randy bowed precisely 30 degrees, not a centimeter more or less, as dictated by the protocol. "Primary Envoy Krelks, I am Captain Miranda Wells of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps. We welcome you to human space and look forward to establishing peaceful relations between our civilizations." The Drosians conferred among themselves, a soft twittering of untranslatable sounds. The one with the most elaborate headgear, a crystalline structure that caught the light in mesmerizing patterns, stepped forward. "Your biological structure is most unusual," it observed. "Our scans indicate you are carbon-based omnivores with alarming inefficiencies in your respiratory and digestive systems." Randy maintained her diplomatic smile. "We make do with what evolution gave us." "Evolution is a chaotic and wasteful process," declared the third Drosian. "The collective has directed its own biological development for 12,000 cycles. Well, we're still working on not destroying ourselves with social media and processed cheese, so you're definitely ahead of us there," Randy quipped before she could stop herself. The translation matrix hummed, then fell silent. The Drosians froze, their environmental suits emitting a sudden pulse of red light. Toshi closed his eyes briefly. "Captain," he whispered. "That was not in the approved response matrix." "It was a joke," Randy whispered back, smile still plastered across her face. "Humans joke. It builds rapport." Primary Envoy Krelk's suit emitted a high-pitched whine as it processed the translation. Then all 3 Drosians simultaneously backed away from the table. "You mock the sacred process of biological advancement." Krelks's translator now had an unmistakable edge to it. "And you invoke the corruption of dairy proteins as a comparison to our 12 millennia of careful genetic cultivation." "That's not exactly what Randy began, but the damage was done. "This meeting is concluded," announced Krelks. "The Drosian Collective does not negotiate with species that disrespect the sanctity of evolutionary direction." As the Drosians turned to leave, Randy shot up from her chair. "Wait, there's been a misunderstanding. Our translation matrix sometimes struggles with cultural context." The Drosians paused, their suits pulsing with alternating colors that probably indicated some emotion the human team couldn't decipher. "Perhaps," conceded Krelks, after a moment, "we have been hasty. The collective values understanding above all else." Randy exhaled with relief. "Excellent, let's restart the conversation with to prove your commitment to understanding," Krelks continued. "We will send you our most valuable teaching tool. Our apex predator will arrive within one Earth rotation. Its purpose will be to educate you on the proper respect for evolutionary advancement. With that, the Drosians glided out of the room, their environmental suits leaving faint trails of luminescent particles in their wake. As the airlock sealed behind them, Toshi turned to Randy with an expression that somehow managed to be both blank and accusatory. "So," he said quietly, "should I inform Earth Command that your cheese joke has resulted in the Drosians sending us their version of a death squad, or would you prefer to write that report yourself?" Randy collapsed back into her chair. "In my defense," she sighed, "it wasn't even a good cheese joke." The emergency meeting of Earth's Interspecies Defense Council went about as well as a dumpster fire at a fireworks factory. "Let me get this straight," Admiral Coleman said, his holographic image flickering slightly as he leaned forward. The vein in his forehead throbbed with such intensity that Randy wondered if it might break free and start a solo career. "You insulted a technologically superior alien species." "I made a joke about cheese," Randy interjected. "And now they're sending an apex predator to our diplomatic station." Randy shrugged. "In fairness, sir, their translation matrix might have misinterpreted apex predator. It could be anything from a PowerPoint presentation to a strongly worded letter." 6 other holographic faces stared at her with expressions ranging from exasperation to outright terror. Dr. Eliza Wong, Earth's foremost xenobiologist, adjusted her glasses nervously. "Captain Wells, Drosian communication patterns are extremely literal. If they say they're sending an apex predator, they're sending an apex predator." "Do we have any intel on what Drosian predators look like?" asked General Martinez, whose hologram appeared to be stress-eating something out of frame. Wong pulled up a series of images that were nothing more than colorful blurs. "Our scans of their vessel detected unusual containment fields, but nothing conclusive. The Drosians evolved on a high-gravity world with an atmosphere 3 times denser than Earth's. Their biology is fundamentally different from ours." "So what you're saying is," Randy summarized, "we have no idea what's coming, but it could eat us all." "That's putting it mildly," Dr. Wong confirmed with disturbing cheerfulness. "It could dissolve us, or inject us with neurotoxins, or emit radiation that turns our bones into pudding." Admiral Coleman's hologram rubbed its temples. "Captain Wells, effective immediately, you are relieved of diplomatic duties and placed under protective custody. The station will be evacuated except for essential military personnel and a containment team." "With all due respect, sir," Randy argued, "running away might make things worse. The Drosians clearly expect us to receive this, whatever it is." "It's not a diplomatic gift basket, Captain," Coleman snapped. "It's a punishment for your cheese commentary. But if we refuse it, the decision is made." Coleman cut her off. "The Drosian vessel has already departed the system. We'll deal with whatever they've sent, but we're not risking our top diplomatic officer." "Even if she's the one who caused this mess," General Martinez muttered. "When we don't know what we're dealing with," Coleman finished, ignoring the interruption. "You'll be transferred to a secure facility on Luna until the situation is resolved." 24 hours later, Randy found herself confined to a luxurious but unmistakably secure suite in the diplomatic station's quarantine wing, surrounded by 4 grim-faced space marines, who seemed to believe that if they stared hard enough at the walls, they could see through them. "Captain Wells," Lieutenant Parker's voice came through the comms. "The Drosian package has arrived." Randy jumped up from her couch. "What is it? What does it look like?" "It's smaller than expected. The transport pod just docked. It's only about the size of a standard escape pod." That was unexpected. Randy had been picturing something along the lines of a star destroyer, or at least a tank. "Have you opened it yet?" "Negative. Containment team is suiting up now. Full biological hazard protocols. We're scanning for energy signatures, but the pod's shielding is blocking our sensors." Randy paced the room. "Patch me through to the visual feed." "Captain," Admiral Coleman said, "it's here because of me, Parker. I should at least see what kind of doom I've brought upon us." A brief pause. "Sending feed to your quarters now. But I didn't tell you anything." The wall screen flickered to life, showing the station's loading bay. A sleek oval pod about 3 meters long sat in the center, surrounded by a dozen figures in heavy containment suits. The pod's surface was a deep crimson, with faint lines of bluish light pulsing across it like veins. "Scans are inconclusive," reported a technician. "No identifiable life signs, but something's definitely alive in there." "Preparing to initiate opening sequence," announced another voice. "All personnel, stand by with containment fields." Randy held her breath as the pod's surface began to shift, the crimson material flowing like liquid to create an opening at one end. The containment team raised their weapons. The pod opened fully, revealing nothing. It appeared empty. "What the hell?" murmured someone on the feed. Then a small dark shape moved inside the pod. Something was uncurling itself from the far corner. "Movement detected," shouted one of the technicians, activating containment field. A shimmering energy barrier sprang up around the pod as the shape inside continued to unfold. Randy leaned closer to the screen, squinting to make out what exactly the Drosians had sent to educate her. The creature finally emerged into the light, and Randy's jaw dropped. "That's their apex predator," she whispered in disbelief. Through the containment field, patting cautiously on 4 delicate paws, was a creature about the size of a house cat. It paused, yawned widely, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth, and then sat down to groom one of its 6 legs with a forked tongue. "Captain Wells," Lieutenant Parker's voice came through the comms, equal parts confusion and relief. "I think the Drosians sent us a space kitten." "That is not a kitten," Dr. Lila Nasser declared, leaning toward the observation glass with unrestrained scientific fascination. "Though I understand the comparison." Randy, who had successfully argued that the arrival of what appeared to be a glorified space hamster hardly warranted her continued confinement, stood beside the xenobiologist in the quarantine lab. The creature in question was currently chasing a scanning drone in circles, occasionally pouncing on it with the enthusiasm of a sugar-high toddler. "It looks like someone crossbred a cat with a Komodo dragon, threw in some extra legs and topped it off with decorative antenna," Randy observed. The creature was covered in iridescent scales that shifted between purple and blue depending on the lighting, with tufts of what appeared to be fur sprouting between them. Its 6 legs ended in retractable claws, and a surprisingly fluffy tail twitched as it stalked the drone. "Its biology is fascinating," Dr. Nasser said, reviewing data on her tablet. "The respiratory system suggests an oxygen-rich environment, but with surprising adaptability. The digestive tract appears capable of processing almost anything organic, and possibly some inorganic materials as well. And look at these readings. Its muscle density is off our charts." Commander Toshi, who had insisted on being present despite his obvious discomfort, kept a healthy distance from the observation window. "So it's a killing machine." Dr. Nasser shrugged. "Everything is a killing machine if you're small enough. To a bacteria, your immune system is the Death Star." "Is it sentient?" Randy asked, watching as the creature finally caught the drone, batted it triumphantly to the ground, then immediately lost interest. "Hard to say. It's demonstrated problem-solving abilities, but whether that's intelligence or instinct." Dr. Nasser paused, as the creature suddenly looked directly at them through the glass, its slit-pupilled eyes fixing on Randy with unnerving intensity. "Well, that's interesting." The creature approached the glass, rising up on its hind legs and placing 2 front paws against the surface. It made a chirping sound that started low and rose in pitch, like a question. "It recognizes you," Toshi said, taking another step back despite the containment barrier. "That's impossible," Randy said. "We've never met, unless the Drosians somehow showed it my picture, and said go eat that one specifically, which would be impressively petty." The creature chirped again, then head-butted the glass with surprising gentleness. "Dr. Nasser checked a reading on her tablet. Its body temperature just increased by 2 degrees, and I'm detecting elevated endorphin levels. Captain Wells, I think it likes you." Randy blinked. "That's not the reaction I expected from an apex predator sent to punish me." "Maybe it's playing with its food," Toshi suggested helpfully. Admiral Coleman's voice crackled through the comms. "Status report, Dr. Nasser. The creature appears non-hostile, Admiral. In fact, it's showing signs of what we might interpret as affection toward Captain Wells." "Could it be a trap?" Coleman asked. "Some kind of biological weapon disguised as a, whatever that is?" Dr. Nasser shook her head. "Our scans haven't detected any pathogens, toxins or explosive compounds. It's just a living organism, albeit an alien one." "I want to go in," Randy declared suddenly. Toshi's eyebrows shot up. "Absolutely not," the Admiral specifically ordered. "The Admiral ordered me to stay safe from a terrifying apex predator," Randy countered. "Does that look terrifying to you?" She gestured at the creature, which had flopped onto its back, and was now wriggling against the floor in what appeared to be an interstellar version of a cat rolling in catnip. "It has 6 legs, Captain," Toshi said flatly. "Extra legs are nature's way of saying stay away." Dr. Nasser, Randy turned to the scientist. Professional opinion. The xenobiologist hesitated. We've run every non-invasive test possible through the containment field. Nothing suggests it's dangerous to humans specifically. But it is an unknown alien species, which was supposedly sent to teach me a lesson, Randy pointed out. Hard to learn if we're separated by reinforced glass. After 20 minutes of debate, multiple risk assessments, and Randy signing no fewer than 7 waivers absolving the United Earth government of responsibility for her potential disembowelment, she found herself in a sealed anteroom to the containment area, wearing a lightweight protective suit. Remember, Dr. Nasser's voice came through her helmet comm. No sudden movements. Maintain a non-threatening posture. If it displays any signs of aggression, bared teeth, raised ridges along its spine, glowing eyes, Randy interrupted. Please tell me that's not actually on the list of possible behaviors. We don't know what we don't know, Captain, Dr. Nasser replied cheerfully. The emergency extraction team is standing by. The inner door slid open with a soft hiss, and Randy stepped cautiously into the containment room. The creature, which had been investigating a scanning device in the corner, immediately spun toward her, its antenna quivering. For a moment, neither moved. Then the creature made that chirping sound again, and bounded toward her with alarming speed. Hold position, Doctor, Nasser instructed through the comm, as Randy instinctively tensed. It's not displaying aggressive posturing. The creature skidded to a halt about a meter away from Randy, its head tilting curiously. Then it lowered its front half in what looked remarkably like a playbow. I think it wants to play, Randy said softly. Proceed with caution, came Toshi's strained voice. It could be luring you into a false sense of security. Randy slowly crouched down to the creature's level. Hey there, she said gently. I'm the cheese joke lady. Apparently we need to have a chat about evolutionary respect. The creature chirped again, then cautiously approached, sniffing at her outstretched hand. Its scales shimmered as it moved, creating a hypnotic ripple effect. After a thorough investigation, it butted its head against her palm, much like it had done with the glass earlier. I think we're friends now, Randy announced, cautiously scratching behind one of its antennae. The creature's eyes half closed in apparent bliss, and a deep rumbling sound emerged from its throat, something between a purr and a gentle growl. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Nasser. Its brain activity patterns are similar to what we see in domesticated Earth animals when being petted by their owners. Well, that settles it, Randy declared. I'm naming it Fluffy, Captain, Toshi sighed. You cannot name the alien punishment creature Fluffy. Too late, we've bonded. As if to prove her point, Fluffy crawled into her lap and curled into a ball, its 6 legs tucked neatly beneath its body and its tail wrapped around itself. See, apex cuddler, maybe. As the creature dozed off in her lap, Randy found herself wondering just what kind of message the Drosians had been trying to send. Either they had a very strange concept of punishment, or something had been lost in translation. Either way, she now had a 6-legged alien pet that could probably bench press a tank if Dr. Nasser's muscle density readings were accurate. Not the worst diplomatic incident outcome she'd ever had. Let me get this perfectly straight, Admiral Coleman said, his holographic image pacing back and forth in Randy's quarters. The fearsome apex predator sent by an advanced alien civilization as punishment for your diplomatic faux pas is currently chasing a laser pointer, Randy finished, gesturing toward Fluffy, who was indeed in hot pursuit of a red dot projected by Dr. Nasser. The creature skittered across the floor with surprising agility for something with so many legs, occasionally crashing into furniture but always bouncing back with undiminished enthusiasm. It's both adorable and scientifically valuable, Dr. Nasser added, moving the dot up a wall and watching as Fluffy scaled the vertical surface with ease, tiny claws leaving microscopic scratches in the metal paneling. Its adhesive toe pads can support over 50 times its body weight. Admiral Coleman's hologram pinched the bridge of its nose. And you're certain it poses no threat? Well, I wouldn't call it harmless, Dr. Nasser admitted as Fluffy successfully pounced on the laser dot, then looked comically confused when the light appeared on its own paw. It has a bite force comparable to a saltwater crocodile, and can apparently digest metal if needed. But it seems to have imprinted on Captain Wells like a duckling, albeit a duckling that could tear through the hull if it really wanted to. Fluffy's a sweetheart, Randy insisted, patting the couch beside her. The creature immediately abandoned its laser hunt and bounded over, curling up against her thigh with a contented rumble. See? Total cuddle monster. That doesn't explain why the Drosians sent it, Toshi pointed out from his safe position near the door. Despite 3 days of evidence that Fluffy was about as threatening as a particularly enthusiastic therapy animal, the commander maintained a healthy paranoia around the creature. They called it punishment, not a gift. Dr. Wong's hologram, which had been silently observing the conversation, suddenly perked up. I may have some insight on that front. My team has been analyzing the Drosian communication logs and biological data we collected during their brief visit. All eyes turned to the xenobiologist as she pulled up a series of complex charts. According to our findings, Dr. Wong continued, the Drosians aren't exactly what we thought they were. The humanoid forms we encountered were essentially biological mechs, living exoskeletons piloted by the actual Drosians. Come again, Randy said, her hand freezing mid-scratch behind Fluffy's antenna. Dr. Wong enlarged an image showing what appeared to be microscopic organisms. The real Drosians are these colonial microbes, each about the size of a large amoeba. They live in complex symbiotic communities and build larger biological structures, including those humanoid forms, to interact with macro-scale species like us. A stunned silence fell over the room, broken only by Fluffy's contented purring. So Randy said slowly, when I made that joke about cheese, you insulted a civilization of microscopic plant-based life forms, Dr. Wong confirmed, who apparently take great pride in their evolutionary path. Randy glanced down at Fluffy, who was now sprawled across her lap in apparent bliss. And this is their apex predator. Exactly, Dr. Wong nodded. On their homeworld, these creatures hunt Drosian colonies. From the Drosian perspective, sending one here would be like us sending a Tyrannosaurus Rex to another planet. Toshi edged slightly closer to the exit. So it does want to eat us. No. Dr. Wong chuckled. It's adapted to detect and consume the specific pheromones and organic compounds produced by Drosian colonies. To Fluffy, we're just weird-smelling furniture that gives good scratches. As if on cue, Fluffy suddenly perked up, its antenna quivering. It leapt off Randy's lap and scampered to the corner of the room, sniffing intently along the seam where wall met floor. What's it doing? Admiral Coleman asked, his hologram squinting. Dr. Nasser consulted her tablet. Its hunting behaviors have been triggered. But there's nothing. She stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening. Unless, she hurried over to where Fluffy was now enthusiastically pawing at the wall panel, running a scanner over the area. She nodded triumphantly. Microbial colony detected. Looks like some harmless earth bacteria that hitched a ride on the station, but the density is unusually high in this spot. So it hunts bacteria? Randy asked, joining her by the wall. Not just any bacteria, Dr. Wong interjected, excitement building in her voice. Dr. Nasser, can you get a sample for analysis? After some careful extraction and quick lab work, Dr. Wong's hypothesis was confirmed. The bacterial colony had structural similarities to Drosian microbes. Not identical, but close enough to trigger Fluffy's hunting instincts. This is revolutionary, Dr. Nasser breathed, reviewing the data. It can detect microbial colonies that would be invisible to our standard sensors. The medical applications alone, more importantly, Admiral Coleman interrupted. Are you suggesting that the Drosians sent us what is essentially a microscopic pest control specialist? Randy couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. They thought they were sending their version of a lion to teach us a lesson, but from our perspective, it's basically a glorified dust mite hunter with a cuddling habit. A thoughtful expression crossed Dr. Wong's face. There's something else to consider. In Drosian communication, we've noted repeated references to something translated as the Great Devourers. I initially thought it was a religious concept, but now I'm wondering if they meant us. Randy finished, the humor draining from her voice. Humans, from their perspective, we must seem like planet-consuming giants. Precisely, Dr. Wong nodded. When you made that joke about processed cheese and biological inefficiency, I accidentally hit on their greatest existential fear, Randy groaned. That we'd treat them like insignificant microbes, and consume their worlds without a second thought. Admiral Coleman's hologram straightened. This changes our diplomatic approach entirely. Captain Wells, I'm reinstating you as lead diplomat. We need to re-establish contact with the Drosians, and clear up this misunderstanding before it escalates further. And what about Fluffy? Randy asked, watching as the creature successfully pried off the wall panel to get at the bacterial colony behind it. Dr. Nasser cleared her throat. Actually, Captain, I've been monitoring Fluffy's behavior around you. There's something quite remarkable happening. It's not just that it likes you, It's actively trying to protect you. Protect me. From what? Randy asked. From harmful microbes, Dr. Nasser explained. I've tracked its movements around your quarters. It's systematically eliminating any bacterial or fungal colonies that could potentially cause human illness. It's essentially functioning as your personal immune system booster. Randy stared at Fluffy, who had successfully extracted what appeared to be a small clump of mold from behind the panel, and was now proudly trotting back to her, its prize clutched in its jaws. Great, Toshi muttered. The apex predator thinks you're its pet. Or doctor, Wong suggested with an intrigued smile. It sees the relationship as symbiotic. You provide it with shelter and affection. It protects you from microscopic threats. Fluffy dropped the mold clump at Randy's feet, like a cat presenting a dead mouse, then looked up expectantly, antenna quivering, with what could only be described as pride. Good job, Randy said uncertainly, reaching down to pat its scaled head. Fluffy chirped happily, and rubbed against her leg. Admiral Coleman's hologram shook its head in disbelief. Captain Wells, only you could turn an alien punishment into an interspecies friendship. Now figure out how to explain to the Drosians that their ultimate weapon has been neutralized with head scratches and laser pointers. Randy glanced down at Fluffy, who was now contently chewing on the mold it had hunted. I have a feeling this diplomatic mission just got a lot more interesting. The Drosians have responded to our communication request, Lieutenant Parker announced, his voice conveying the precise mix of relief and dread that had become standard operating procedure on the diplomatic station. They'll be arriving in approximately 3 hours. Randy nodded, straightening her freshly pressed uniform, while simultaneously trying to prevent Fluffy from climbing up her back like a six-legged mountaineer. Any indication of their mood? Are they bringing more predators or perhaps a strongly worded letter written in microscopic font? Unknown, Captain. Their message was brief and untranslatable except for what appears to be a temporal indicator. Wonderful. Randy sighed, finally plucking Fluffy from her shoulder and setting the creature on her desk. Toshi, make sure the translation matrix has been updated with Dr. Wong's findings about Drosian biology. We need to avoid another cheese-level catastrophe. Commander Toshi, who had over the past week developed a grudging tolerance for Fluffy after the creature had tracked down and eliminated a potentially harmful fungal infection in his quarters, nodded stiffly. Already done, Captain. Though I'm still not convinced bringing that to the meeting is wise. He gestured at Fluffy, who was currently attempting to disassemble Randy's communication tablet with focused determination. The Drosians sent Fluffy to us, Randy countered, gently redirecting the creature's attention to an approved toy. A complex puzzle box filled with dehydrated bacterial cultures that Dr. Nasser had created. Its presence demonstrates that we've understood their gift and have integrated it into our society. Or they'll be horrified that we've domesticated their apex predator and declare war immediately, Toshi muttered. Admiral Coleman's hologram flickered into existence beside them, looking even more stressed than usual. Captain Wells, the Joint Chiefs are extremely concerned about this meeting. The Drosian Collective controls 17 star systems in a strategically valuable sector. We cannot afford a diplomatic incident. With all due respect, sir, Randy replied. We've already had the diplomatic incident. I'm trying to transform it into a diplomatic opportunity. By bringing your alien pet to the negotiating table. By demonstrating that humans and Drosians can find common ground despite our vastly different scales and biologies. Randy picked up Fluffy, who had successfully solved the puzzle box in record time and was now chirping for a reward. Besides, I've been working with Dr. Nasser on something that might help. 3 hours later, Randy stood in the conference room, Fluffy perched on a specially designed harness attached to her shoulder. The creature had been surprisingly cooperative about wearing the small translating device attached to its collar, though it occasionally batted at it with one paw as if finding the soft blinking light irresistible. They're docking now, Parker announced over the comms. Atmospheric composition has been adjusted to their specifications. Remember, Dr. Wong's voice added, the Drosians perceive time differently than we do due to their microscopic nature. What seems like a normal conversation pace to us might feel agonizingly slow to them. So talk fast but not too fast, Randy summarized. Anything else I should know before we potentially restart an interstellar incident? Yes, Dr. Nasser chimed in. Fluffy's biological readings suggest increased alertness. It can definitely sense the approaching Drosians. As if to confirm this, Fluffy's antenna straightened to full extension, quivering with what Randy had learned to recognize as focused interest rather than aggression. The creature made no attempt to leap from her shoulder, instead pressing closer to her neck in a protective posture. The conference room doors slid open, and 3 environmental suits glided in, the same Drosian representatives from the first disastrous meeting. They stopped abruptly upon seeing Randy with Fluffy, their suits emitting a rapid cascade of color changes. "Greetings, representatives of the Drosian Collective," Randy said, speaking at precisely 1.5 times her normal rate as Dr. Wong had suggested. "Thank you for agreeing to this second meeting." Primary Envoy Krellick's suit stepped forward, colors still pulsing erratically. "You have tamed the Cracksylph." The translation came through with evident distortion, as if the very concept was difficult to express in human language. "If by Cracksylph you mean this magnificent creature," Randy gestured to Fluffy, who was now sitting up straighter, eyes fixed on the Drosian suits, "then I would not say tamed so much as formed a mutually beneficial relationship with." The Drosians conferred among themselves, their suits emitting high-pitched sounds that the translation matrix couldn't process. "This is unprecedented," Krelks finally stated. "The Cracksylph is the most feared predator in the collective. It has consumed entire colonies. We sent it to demonstrate the power of natural selection and the folly of mocking evolutionary paths." "About that," Randy said carefully, "there appears to have been a misunderstanding. My previous comment about cheese was not meant as mockery of your evolutionary achievements, but rather as self-deprecating humor about human limitations. Yet you have neutralized our ultimate biological weapon with—" Krelks paused, the suit's sensors focusing on Fluffy, who chose that moment to yawn widely, displaying its impressive array of teeth. "Affection. That's the fascinating part," Randy said, activating a holographic display. "Dr. Nasser, would you explain our findings?" Dr. Nasser's voice came through clearly as the display showed microscopic imagery of Fluffy's cellular structure alongside Drosian microbes and human cells. "The creature you call Cracksylph has formed a symbiotic bond with Captain Wells. It protects her from harmful microorganisms while receiving care and stimulation in return. This mirrors in many ways how your own colonial structures function, just at a different biological scale." The Drosians moved closer to the display, their suits' analysis systems clearly working overtime. "Impossible," declared the Drosian with the crystalline headgear. "The Cracksylph hunts, it does not cooperate." "Perhaps," Randy suggested, "your understanding of the Cracksylph was limited by your perspective, just as our understanding of the Drosian Collective was limited by ours." Fluffy chose that moment to activate the small device on its collar. Dr. Nasser had explained that it wasn't truly a translator. The creature wasn't linguistically sophisticated enough for that, but rather a system that analyzed Fluffy's biological responses and converted them into simplified expressions. "Protect, home, together." The mechanical voice emerged from the collar as Fluffy pressed closer to Randy's neck. The Drosian suits physically recoiled. "It communicates." Krelks's translator sounded genuinely shocked. "In a limited fashion," Randy explained. "Much like how individual Drosian microbes communicate within your colonial structures. Not complex language, but basic concepts and needs. This changes everything." The third Drosian finally spoke. "If the Cracksylph can form bonds with macro-scale beings, then perhaps so can the Drosian Collective," Randy finished. "Which brings me to my proposal." She outlined a new framework for human-Drosian relations, emphasizing shared research into symbiotic relationships across different biological scales. As she spoke, Fluffy occasionally added simple terms through its collar. "Good," "share," "explore," which seemed to both fascinate and disturb the Drosians in equal measure. Just as the conversation appeared to be making progress, Fluffy suddenly stiffened, its scales shifting to a deep purple. Before anyone could react, it leapt from Randy's shoulder directly toward Krelks's environmental suit. "Danger." The collar translated as Fluffy latched onto the suit with all 6 paws. Security alerts blared. Toshi moved to activate containment protocols. The Drosian suits emitted frantic pulses of red light. But instead of attacking the suit, Fluffy began meticulously inspecting a specific section near what would be considered the shoulder area, its antenna working furiously. "Wait." Dr. Nasser's voice cut through the chaos. "Sensors indicate a containment breach in the Drosian suit, microscopic but growing." "Fluffy's not attacking, it's identifying a threat to the Drosians." Krelks's suit had frozen in place. "Confirm. Our internal sensors now detect a breach. Hostile microorganisms from your station are attempting to infiltrate our environment." "Fluffy," Randy called, trying to keep her voice calm. "Show us where." The creature tapped its paw repeatedly against a specific spot on the suit. Dr. Nasser immediately directed a nanoscale repair drone to the location, sealing the breach with a specialized polymer. Fluffy chirped triumphantly as its collar translated. "Fixed. Safe now." The tension in the room deflated like a punctured balloon. Fluffy bounded back to Randy, looking immensely pleased with itself. It would seem, Krelk stated after a long pause, that we have much to learn from each other, and perhaps, from the Craxilth as well. As the meeting adjourned with tentative plans for further discussions, Admiral Coleman's hologram appeared beside Randy. I don't believe what I just witnessed. You turned a diplomatic disaster into a breakthrough using an alien space cat. That's why they pay me the big bucks, sir, Randy replied, scratching behind Fluffy's antenna as the creature purred contentedly. Though to be fair, I think Fluffy deserves a promotion. How does Ambassador Fluffy sound? The Admiral's hologram sighed deeply. Just don't let it negotiate the trade agreements. I have a feeling it would exchange our entire fleet for a box of bacterial treats. Fluffy's collar activated one final time. Smart plan, more treats. Ambassador Fluffy, please stop eating the ceremonial documentation. Randy gently tugged the ornate scroll from between Fluffy's teeth, earning an indignant chirp from the creature. 3 months after the initial diplomatic incident, Fluffy had indeed received an official designation as Interspecies Liaison Assistant, a title that Commander Toshi had suggested with what he claimed was absolutely zero sarcasm. Today marked the signing of the historic first formal treaty between humanity and the Drosian Collective, and Fluffy was dressed for the occasion in a miniature diplomatic uniform that Dr. Nasser had designed, complete with shoulder patches bearing both Earth and Drosian insignias. You know those aren't bacteria-infused, Randy chided, smoothing the creature's scale fur. The edible copies are in your quarters. Fluffy's translator collar, now significantly upgraded after weeks of collaboration between human and Drosian scientists, activated. Bored. Smells interesting. When food. After the ceremony, Randy promised, adjusting her own dress uniform. The past 3 months had been an exhausting whirlwind of negotiations, scientific breakthroughs, and cultural exchanges. What had begun as a cheese-related diplomatic incident had evolved into one of the most productive first-contact scenarios in Earth's brief interstellar history. Lieutenant Parker appeared in the doorway of Randy's office. Captain, the Drosian delegation has arrived. And they've brought something. Randy raised an eyebrow. Something good or something that's going to make Admiral Coleman's hologram explode with rage? Unclear, Parker admitted. It's in a containment pod similar to the one Fluffy arrived in but larger. Fluffy perked up immediately, antenna quivering. Friend? Coming? Randy and Parker exchanged looks. Friend was Fluffy's designation for anything from actual companions to particularly interesting bacterial colonies. It had once declared a malfunctioning coffee machine to be friend before dismantling it to extract a mold growth inside the water reservoir. Let's go find out, Randy said, scooping Fluffy onto her shoulder. The creature had grown slightly in the past months, but remained comfortably portable. More importantly, it had proven invaluable in facilitating communication with the Drosians, whose microscopic perspective made many human concepts difficult to translate. The treaty signing was taking place in the station's grand observation deck, which had been modified to accommodate both human-scale furniture and specialized platforms for the Drosian environmental suits. As Randy entered, she noticed the crimson pod positioned prominently beside the signing table. Primary Envoy Krelix glided forward to meet her. Over time, Randy had learned to interpret the subtle color shifts of the Drosian suits as emotional indicators. Currently, Krelix was displaying patterns that suggested what might be the Drosian equivalent of nervous excitement. Captain Wells, Krelix greeted her, the translation now much smoother after months of refinement. Before we proceed with the formal treaty signing, the collective wishes to present a gift, a symbol of our new understanding. Fluffy chirped excitedly, straining forward on Randy's shoulder. Its translator spat out a rapid string of concepts. Friend? New. Different. Exciting. A gift? Randy echoed, eyeing the pod with cautious optimism. That's very generous, though I hope it's not another apex predator. My quarters barely accommodate one. The assembled human delegation chuckled nervously. Admiral Coleman's hologram, projected at life size for the occasion, somehow managed to look both diplomatic and ready to order an emergency evacuation. Not a predator, Krelix assured her as the pod began to shimmer, its surface becoming translucent. An explanation. The pod opened to reveal what appeared to be a small crystalline structure about the size of a basketball, pulsing with soft blue light. Suspended within the crystal were thousands of tiny moving points that caught the light like diamond dust. This is a Drosian memory crystal, Krelix explained. It contains the complete historical record of the Craxilth, what you call Fluffy, and their relationship to our species. Dr. Wong stepped forward, scientific curiosity overriding protocol. a biological data storage system. Indeed, confirmed the Drosian with the elaborate headgear, whom Randy now knew was named Vextril, the collective's chief biological engineer. Each point of light is a specialized memory-carrying microbe, encoded with specific information. When properly interfaced, the crystal can transfer this knowledge directly. Fluffy leapt from Randy's shoulder onto the table, approaching the crystal with uncharacteristic caution. It sniffed delicately at the surface, then sat back on its haunches, head tilted in apparent contemplation. Recognize, its translator stated. Old home, stories. Dr. Nasser, who had been monitoring Fluffy's biological responses, gasped softly. Captain, Fluffy's neurological patterns just shifted significantly. I think it's remembering something. Krelix's suit emitted a pattern that Randy had come to recognize as satisfaction. The Krexilth species has always had a unique connection to our collective. What we did not share during our initial contact was the true nature of that relationship. The crystal pulsed brighter, projecting a holographic display that showed microscopic Drosian colonies alongside creatures that looked like miniature versions of Fluffy. Thousands of cycles ago, Krelix continued. The Krexilth were not predators but protectors. Our ancestors engineered them as guardians against truly harmful microorganisms that threatened our colonies. They were designed to hunt only specific pathogens, leaving beneficial organisms untouched. Randy stared at the holographic display, pieces falling into place. So Fluffy's hunting behavior is selective and purposeful, Vextril confirmed. The Krexilth do not merely destroy, they cultivate. They remove harmful elements while allowing beneficial ones to flourish. But you called it your apex predator, Tashi pointed out, his diplomatic training not quite hiding his confusion. A translation error, Krelix admitted. In our language, the term we used, Kalik Mora, means both supreme hunter and ultimate protector. Your matrix selected the more aggressive interpretation. Fluffy chirped excitedly as the display showed Krexilth working alongside Drosian colonies, selectively targeting invasive organisms while leaving the colonies intact. Over time, Krelix continued, as our civilization developed more sophisticated environmental controls, we relied less on the Krexilth. Some factions of our collective began to view them as primitive reminders of our vulnerable past. They were relegated to wildlife preserves, their true purpose forgotten by many. When you made your comment about evolutionary paths, Vextril added, it triggered a cultural memory, a reminder that we had perhaps abandoned part of our heritage in the name of progress. Randy looked at Fluffy, who was now sitting directly beside the crystal, its scales pulsing in patterns that eerily mirrored the light within the memory structure. So you didn't send Fluffy as punishment. It was, what? A reminder of your past? Both less and more than that, Krelix replied cryptically. When your translation error occurred, there was division within our collective. Some viewed it as an opportunity to test humanity's nature. Would you attempt to destroy what you perceived as a threat, or would you seek understanding? You were testing us, Admiral Coleman's hologram stated flatly. Evaluating, Krelix corrected. All spacefaring species must be assessed before true alliance can be considered. Some respond to perceived threats with immediate violence, others with fear and isolation. And we passed by making friends with your apex predator, Randy concluded, reaching out to scratch Fluffy's head. The creature leaned into her touch without looking away from the crystal. You demonstrated something we had forgotten, Vextril said, the suit's colors shifting to deep blues and purples. That advancement need not mean abandonment of biological connections. That symbiosis can exist across vastly different scales of life. The crystal's projection changed to show recent recordings. Fluffy interacting with Randy, protecting the station from harmful microbes, even the moment when it had detected the breach in Krelix's suit. From our perspective, Krelix explained, you have formed a protective bond with a creature thousands of times your size, much as we once did with creatures thousands of times larger than ourselves. The symmetry is poetically significant to our culture. Fluffy's translator activated again. Purpose, protect, together, better. Randy found herself unexpectedly moved. What had begun as a diplomatic misunderstanding had revealed a deeper truth about both species, a reminder that cooperation across biological differences was not just possible, but potentially vital. Well, she said, clearing her throat slightly, I think we're ready to sign that treaty. Though I suspect Fluffy, I mean the Krexilth deserves the first signature. Agreed, Krelix said, the suit's translator conveying what might have been humor, though perhaps not with ink. The last time we allowed a Kraxilth to mark our historical documents, it ate 3 memory crystals and decorated a 4th with what you would call bacterial art. As the laughter subsided and the formal signing began, Randy noticed Fluffy had curled protectively around the memory crystal, 6 legs tucked neatly beneath its body, eyes half closed in contentment. The creature that had been sent as either test or punishment now served as living proof that understanding could bridge even the vastest differences in biology and perspective. "I've been thinking," she murmured to Tashi as they watched the Drosians glide into position for the ceremony. "Maybe we should update Earth's first contact protocols. Less focus on defense, more on finding common ground." "Perhaps," Tashi conceded with the hint of a smile. "Though I doubt every alien apex predator will be as charming as Ambassador Fluffy." "Protected," Fluffy's translator announced suddenly, the creature lifting its head to survey the room with evident satisfaction. "All safe. Good home." And as the treaty was signed, marking the beginning of what would become one of humanity's most productive interstellar alliances, Fluffy dozed off beside the memory crystal, a 6-legged bridge between microscopic and macroscopic worlds, dreaming whatever apex predators dream when they've found their perfect place in the universe. Perhaps of cheese jokes, but probably just of home.